Hello, my name is Sean Kavanagh. I'm a technical marketing manager here at the Ansible business unit. Today we'll be talking about Ansible Automation Platform 2.4, our brand new release. And joining me today, we have Colin McNaughton. Can you say hi, Colin?
Hi, Sean. Hi.
So today for 2.4, the theme is more value, more content, more ways to automate, more possibilities, more control. So our theme is very much more, which is great with automation because you want to be able to automate everything, anything, everywhere, right? And one of the newest, coolest things we're going to be talking about today is EDA, which Colin will be covering. If you were not able to make Red Hat Summit in Ansible Fest, you would have missed Colin being on main stage. So he's going to show us a little bit of that today. Then I'll be covering collection repo management, a new ability for Private Automation Hub, validated content. We're talking more content. A lot of this is validated content. Then talking about the new platforms you can install Ansible Automation Platform on today, like ARM. We'll also be briefly covering tech preview features, including Ansible Lightspeed, which when you're thinking AI, people are thinking Lightspeed, which is how you create playbooks very quickly, task by task, without having to know or look up modules. We have new centralized UI features. So think of a new user experience within controller that you can turn on. It's an optional toggle. And then talking about even more architectures that we're going to be adding on, like Power and Z. So with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Colin McNaughton.
Hey, all right, Sean. Thank you very much. One thing I got to start out and say, don't call it EDA. EDA is a little confusing. That could be event-driven architecture, event-driven automation, but no, we're talking about event-driven Ansible, Sean, Ansible. But yeah, so thank you very much. Event-driven Ansible is something that I'm very much into right now because it's this brand new paradigm, this new pattern of integrating into our automation platform that we've created here. And it adds another component to the subscription. So this isn't like a buy up premium tier kind of offering, right? With Ansible Automation Platform, it's one subscription that rules all of these components, right? Event-driven Ansible, brand new component here that unlocks a bunch of different use cases for us. So, the one that I typically kind of talk about first is think about like drift remediation, right? Typically, if we are using Ansible to automate our network equipment, then we're going to have to repull every 45 or 60 minutes across all of our inventory to ensure that everything is, at the desired state, right? Now with event-driven Ansible, we can react in real time to these changes. So instead of repulling and checking the status of our network equipment, we know which pieces of equipment has drifted away from its intended configuration, and we can snap it back to that configuration that we want to push out. It allows us to react in real time to these events. And this isn't just drift remediation. This could also be outage events. This could be observability, things, events coming out of Dynatrace or Instana or Turbonomic. So that we are able to take a problem that's occurring within our environment, take the payload from that problem. Dynatrace and Instana do a really nice job of saying, here's the problem as I've defined it, and then here are all the impacted entities. So we can pass that payload over to event-driven Ansible and now automate against all of those impacted entities. Now, it doesn't have to just be in response to an outage, right? It doesn't have to be reactive. It can also be more proactive. So, for instance, maybe we have a source plugin for Kubernetes. Anytime a new config map changes within OpenShift or Kubernetes, let's go ahead and update maybe a configuration item within ServiceNow ITSM or redeploy that application. So its ability to react is the prime responsibility for event-driven Ansible, and it follows that sort of if this then that paradigm. So let's take a look at something that I've been working on here. All right, so here's sort of the lay of the land for what I'm trying to accomplish with event-driven Ansible today. I have a third-party application that doesn't really have a good integration point into the rest of my infrastructure. Now, this is a SaaS-based application, right? And the only integration point it has is actually webhooks. So I want to take that webhook that my third-party application, in this example, is Instruct. I want to take that webhook post data, that payload, send it over to an Azure function that I'm running. Now, this is a serverless function that's functioning as a webhook receiver, and it does things like validate who is sending that payload and a few other things. It does sort of the filtering of the events that eventually are going to make it to event-driven Ansible. But after this serverless function runs, it takes that payload, tosses it over to Azure Service Bus. And you can kind of see where I'm going here. We use Azure Service Bus in my fictional organization here to collect all of this different event data. And then I can use Event-Driven Ansible to pull out the bits that I care about. In this case, I want to pull off of Azure Service Bus anytime there's a failure being reported by Instruct. And then I want to run some automated action. So in this is sort of the overall flow of this. Instruct sends that webhook post over to this serverless function. The serverless function does a little bit of filtering, sends it on to Azure Service Bus. Event-Driven Ansible is subscribed to that queue on Azure Service Bus, acknowledges the receipt, and then returns a message which just says message sent to Service Bus. So what does that look like? Well, let's take a look at some of these webhooks coming in. This is Instruct on my side. This is that third-party application that does some webhook integrations here, and I want to react to this payload right here. And this is exactly it. It has the type of sandbox failed. It tells me which sandbox actually recorded the error and which participant was actually given that error message. So with all of this stuff, I can automate the opening of a brand new incident within my project space to alert me of something that's going wrong. And I can do that in real time so that I can start to debug these events. I do that with, here is my Event-Driven Ansible project, and within it, I have this rulebooks directory. And this is where I'm defining some of these, where I'm sort of codifying my reaction to this specific event. So first, what I do is I use the Azure Service Bus source plugin, and I'm connecting to that Azure Service Bus queue. Now, connection string and queue names, these are things that are provided as I create that service bus and that queue. So these are sort of connection specific. I'm pulling these from variables files, so I don't have to actually show you my connection string here. But then once I'm subscribed to that queue, I'm waiting for an event payload type of sandbox failed. So I can pull out that specific type. And remember, I have a bunch of different messages posting to this service bus. So it's really important to me that I only react to issues with whose payloads match this specific string, right? And from there, all I'm going to do is run a job template. For me, what's really important in this case is to just bring awareness that there is a failure somewhere within my environment. So this job template creates a GitHub issue. And it creates an issue out of all of that stuff from the payload. Give me the timestamp, the team ID, the participant ID, the track name, and all of that, and allow me to create a brand new issue that informs my team exactly what's going on. Now, once I create this rulebook, it's time to import it into Event-Driven Ansible controller. And this is it here. So I've already imported my project. This works a lot like Automation Controller. I've imported that project where the rulebook is defined. I have a decision environment, which is it contains all of the prerequisites for actually executing this rulebook. And then I create a rulebook activation. Now, this rulebook activation is going to run constantly in the background, and it's evaluating these new messages on that Azure Service Bus and waiting for the right conditions to respond. So that's kind of the base of what I'm working on right now. This is a little bit unfinished. I still need to go through and test all of this and make sure that it's creating these GitHub issues. Manual testing looks great, but I need to do some additional work. So I invite you actually to go back out and take a look at Event-Driven Ansible. We have some resources that you should be able to use to get your hands-on experience with some of this stuff. So we've already talked about this platform Instruct. This is where we're hosting all of this on-demand sandboxed content so that you can go check out these interactive labs for yourself get some hands-on time with Ansible Rulebook and Event-Driven Ansible Controller. We also have webinars and blogs and really cool technical material that my team has also put together. So I'm super excited about this. I'm finding ways that I can apply event-driven Ansible within my environment today, where I have, typically sort of minimal integration to these third-party applications. Now, Sean, I think this is probably the first time you've kind of seen this plan. How's this looking for you? I know you use Instruct all the time too, right?
I think it's really cool, Colin. And having seen and helped you with the labs at Red Hat Summit, I think a lot of customers thought it was really cool too. Um, I can't even fathom the amount of use cases we're having across like all the different domains. Event-driven Ansible, not EDA, for hybrid cloud, for Linux infrastructure, Windows infrastructure. I think there's a lot of cool stuff. So with that, obviously shoot us questions about EDA, try out the labs online, and I'm going to move over and start talking about repo management in Private Automation Hub. So right now I'm logged into our console.redhat.com. Think of this as like our app store across all automation content. So when you have a Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform subscription, you get access to all the latest content from a variety of partners. You can see that we have 67 partners currently listed, and we have well over 140 different collections within console.redhat.com. This is referred to as Automation Hub, and this is different. This is the downstream supported content included in your subscription. And what differentiates this with upstream content is that this is signed and goes through a testing process with Red Hat, so we can make sure that this content is unmodified. When we look at upstream content on Galaxy, it has a lot more content, and it's a great way to distribute content between different people. But what's great here is we can actually know if this content's unmodified. We don't know if an individual contributor, a partner, the actual company is behind some content. So this is a way for Red Hat to create a curated list of fully supported content that you get with your subscription. Now, with Private Automation Hub, this is a way to host your own content and sync with Automation Hub with on-premises component where you can host it anywhere within your infrastructure. Now you can see that we have unsigned and signed content on premises here, including validated content, which I'll highlight in a second. But one of the new features we have specifically is repository management. So before, we only had a set amount of repositories with community content, published content, and certified content. We've added validated, but we've also created a way for you to create your own repositories. Now, this becomes really interesting to a variety of customers because it allows them to share different content with different groups. So imagine you're a consulting company that needs to create content for different customers, but you don't want to share that content with other customers because it's either proprietary or something that's not relevant to that customer. Is you can simply just add another repository of content, and you can make this private from other organizations. It's also interesting to larger organizations where they might have a Windows team and a Linux team and a network team, and they need different levels of content shared with them because there's a lot of different content out there that may not be relevant, or it's something that needs to be kept separate for a variety of security policies within that organization. So this allows us to scale this up and down to any amount of repositories, and repositories may have the same exact remote. So a remote is simply, in this case, we can use the upstream Galaxy or the downstream Automation Hub with the Red Hat certified remote. So with that, I'll look at the content. You can see I've already synced. I have 158 collections as of like mid-June right now. And you'll see that there's also different types of content. We can actually filter this content by the type of repository it's in. So you can imagine here I can add more repositories. And right now I can simply go to validated content, which is a new content tag for Ansible Automation Platform 2.4. And you'll see that there's a mix of signed and unsigned content. I can simply sign my own content if I go in here to a specific content, click the little kebab menu and click sign entire collection and just sign all. And very quickly we'll see that this content is signed, and we can actually look at this under task management to see actions being taken. You can see where previous ones have failed and completed in the past. I'll go back to collections to look at this, and you'll see that different content signed and unsigned. So validated content, what is it? How does this differentiate from certified content? So certified content we can think of as how we're actually integrating with a particular vendor or platform. So if you have Cisco namespace, for example, we have a lot of different certified content for Cisco. So I'll look at the collections in here, and you'll see that we have a variety of different network platforms, including DNAC, we have iOS, ASA, ACI, and these are different network platforms and products that Cisco sells across the platform. These, however, don't actually have the content. They're not use case focused. So when we talk about validated content, we're specifically talking about use cases. So instead of talking about just a module to interact with that platform and integration and that API for that platform, we're talking about an actual use case. So you can see real quickly, we have an OSPF validated content, which focuses on configuring the routing protocol OSPF for network devices across all of them, or an interfaces validated content, which is configuring network interfaces across content. You can see that we have different validated content across different domains. So you see that there's validated content for infrastructure, thinking Linux and Windows infrastructure, or even automation controller itself and EE utilities. And then we have like network as a domain in here. And what's really nice about this content is it can be released asynchronously from what's happening with the platform releases. So what will happen is as you are getting content and this shows up on Automation Hub, you can simply resync that content at any point, and you'll get more and more content as we release this asynchronously. So you don't have to wait a year to get the newest and greatest content from us for validated content. So as you can see, validated content and certified content and content signing is super important. We can actually control both the content for use cases and content for those vendors and custom content that we create. We can sign and control the end-to-end software supply chain. So we make sure that that playbook has not been modified from when we created it to when it's actually being executed on execution node within my IT infrastructure environment. And you can see how important that is. If I downloaded a playbook and someone modified it, you can imagine some nefarious activity could happen where they install some agent or backdoor into the systems. So automation is always a force multiplier, but you need things like content signing and a secure content supply chain to make sure that things are not modified within your environment and you have some validity to what's being executed within your IT infrastructure. With that, I'm going to pivot over to talking about new platforms we support with ARM. Specifically, the flexibility we've added here is for edge use cases. So edge has become super important to Red Hat, and Ansible Automation Platform is included. We've always done a lot of edge with the Ansible business unit. We've done things for networking edge. We've enabled people where there's machines where you can't install an agent, where Ansible is kind of uniquely situated. And what we've had is our customers talked about that they needed ARM support so that we can actually install execution nodes on CPUs that are using an ARM CPU. So this is now fully supported with your Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform subscription, and it shows our invested commitment to edge use cases and kind of where we're expanding to next. So now we're going to pivot slightly and talk about tech preview features. This means they're not part of the fully supported release, but you can start playing with them as soon as AAP 2.4 comes out, which is really awesome. The first one I want to talk about is one of the big enchiladas, the one that our whole team's excited about, which is Ansible Lightspeed with IBM Watson Code Assistant. If you went to Summit again, this was on the main stage. Me and Colin had one of our best friends and colleagues, Craig, get up on stage and present this and actually do a live demo against our advice and a lot of experience doing live demos on stage, which is super fun. And he even taught a workshop with AI, which is one of the first ones I've ever heard about. I don't know how many companies are kind of doing hands-on workshops with something like Ansible Lightspeed, and it was really cool. Specifically right now, Lightspeed is focused on the content creator, the Ansible developer, someone who's writing playbooks. And this is to help them be able to write it. So it's very similar to tools in the market. You would see something like GitHub Copilot, right? Where you're used to doing in your editor. Specifically though, what differentiates us in the market is this is specifically focused on Ansible content itself, and is able to also do things like attributions, which is very important to Red Hatters with the open source communities, understanding where content comes from, where we can get it from, and understanding where did this AI with its thinking just magically come up with this, is it'll actually tell us exactly where it came up with it, and then autocomplete tasks. So you simply type a human prompt into your text editor and Visual Studio Code as part of the Ansible plugin. It will autocomplete tasks. It will start creating playbooks, and lots of new features are coming soon. So please sign up online. You can actually be part of the beta right now and start playing with it. And you'll see this kind of again, asynchronously release over the next quarter and become part of the product by the end of the year. So it's really, really cool. Next, I'll talk just really quickly. We're talking about Edge again, Edge in the different platforms out there. And two other important platforms, especially to Red Hat, is IBM Power and IBM Z, and being able to install execution nodes into these platforms that can be across a variety of IT infrastructure environments. So again, this is just more. That general theme we talked about at the beginning is more control and more environments we can install into, and helping more customers with where they need to execute Ansible. If you're unfamiliar with automation mesh, it's been around for a while and it works really well in these edge environments and being able to install execution nodes on exactly where we want. And finally, I'm going to talk really quickly about UX enhancements. And we have this ability actually to be able to be turned on with a knob in Automation Controller with AAP 2.4. So I'm going to log into Automation Controller, which is the main kind of command and control for Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform. And this is the dashboard. If you're using our product today, this is what you know and love. This is what people are used to. If they play with our hands-on labs on redhat.com, there's tons of labs we created for hands-on with Automation Controller. Now you'll see that we have this little blue bubble, which is new with AAP 2.4. A tech preview of the new Ansible Automation Platform user interface can be found here. Now to enable this, I actually had to go under Settings, Miscellaneous System Settings. You're going to click Edit on the bottom here, and you'll see a new knob right here, Enable Preview of New User Interface. So when you click this toggle and you save, and you go back to the dashboard, you'll have this ability to switch to a new user interface. Now, this is the first steps of many which we'll make over the next year of improving the user experience for our customers. So we've been adding lots of features. You see EDA, Event-Driven Ansible, you see Private Automation Hub and content signing and that secure end-to-end supply chain. But what we've gotten feedback from customers is now you have 3 user interfaces, and that can be confusing. And there's still stuff we wanted to improve on Automation Controller from when it used to kind of evolved over time organically. So this is our first look at re-examining the user experience, improving it, and making it faster. So like one of the cool things you probably notice right away is like, oh, it's black. You're like, cool. And that's because my actual system settings are set to black, or dark mode rather, is I can actually set this to the system default on my system, or I can switch right back to light. So depending on what you have set on your desktop, this is now actually kind of a much more modern experience. And you can see all the different kind of customizations I can make with user experience. You'll also notice as I click around, there's no video trickery happening here. It seems way faster to me. And you can go in here and click on things and you can edit them just the same as you're used to. And that's something to notice too, is if a feature or knob is not available yet, it will just give you a little page, and you can always revert right back to the user experience that you're used to before. So if there's some knob, feature, widget that is not available in the new tech preview, it's very simply to go back. And again, with kind of Z-Stream updates, these Z-Streamless rather, as you do updates, you'll be able to get more and more user experience enhancements over the next few months as we continue to update that experience for our customers. So I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited about the speed enhancements. I'm very excited about the dark mode and the light mode and all the different customizations I can make. And I'm very excited to see like all the new enhancements as it kind of gets full coverage on our old user experience. To recap, for general availability as part of Ansible Automation Platform 2.4, we have a lot more validated content. We have collection repo management to help you control and sign content for a variety of different groups or customers that you have within your organization. And the big enchilada that we covered today with Colin was Event-Driven Ansible, which I'm the most excited about. All the different integrations that we have launching alongside this and kind of new ways we can use automation where we're not kind of reliant on push button or scheduling or some other device, as automation happens as soon as we need it. Now for tech preview, we also covered Ansible Lightspeed with IBM Watson Code Assistant. And I think this is a very cool place to see where artificial intelligence can actually help us in our day-to-day getting work done. No longer are you going to have to open up 4 browsers looking at Ansible playbooks and examples, as you can have it autocomplete tasks and help you out. We have new centralized UI features. And again, this is just a stepping stone, but you can see how awesome and incredible that experience is changing for our users and being able to manage their playbooks and job templates at scale. And finally, expanding into different environments with Power and Z. And then already on the boat, we've added ARM. So I think there's a lot of new places where you'll see Ansible installed and executing in a variety of different environments, including the far edge. So with that, I want to thank everyone for watching this video and thank Colin for presenting EDA and showing us kind of the cool work he's been up to. There will be links in the description on this video. It's kind of your call to action, like what can I do next? But your main goal to take away from this is download Ansible Automation Platform 2.4 today and try it. And if you're already using it on OpenShift, you can just simply upgrade it with that operator. So thank you for watching and make sure to subscribe.